put on my hat here because we're going to do a little bit of workout with our great brain fitness design thinking leaders over here. And so everyone's going to need to get involved and ready. Remember, we want to hear from you. This is all about you now. This entire session has been actually about you as well. But I have amazing people here with me today. I have Corey Lane Crouch, who's our Chief Program Officer, former teacher, leader, amazing person, and a friend, lover. And also Ivan. Ivan, I've heard such good things about. Also, what about that fashion sense? Not only does he do such amazing things to help students and teachers alike, but also has a great fashion sense. So are we ready to go, guys? Let's do it.
Let's go. All right. We are so excited to be here with you. Let me get, as Amanda mentioned, I'm Corey Lane Crouch, Chief Program Officer at AI for Education. And I could not be more excited to introduce you all to the best design thinking coach we could find on the market to help us work out our brains and apply everything you've been digesting and absorbing today. I'll let him introduce himself. Ivan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Coach Ivan, lifetime educator and athlete, ready to work out your brains with design thinking. Been teaching design for a couple decades now and to all ages, and it's so much fun. And we're so excited to have hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands. I don't know how many people are on the call today. I hope you're ready to do a little brain workout and a little physical workout too. If you have a little space around you, probably clear it. If you're standing up, great. If you're not, think about it.
All right. So if you've been with us all day, or even if you haven't, this session is going to work for you. Today, you did a bunch of learning in the morning about generative AI, prompting. We heard from so many practitioners in the space about what they're applying, and you got to experiment with all sorts of tools and resources out there. Now, we're taking all of that material you got today, your context and your practice, and we saw in the chat that so many of you have already been thinking about what your big idea or your moonshot is. We're going to give you a little workout sprinkle of design thinking so that we can get some of those big ideas more formed and really get those innovation juices going. Our objective here is that you walk away with a big idea, and we are going to ask you about it. We want you to identify a problem. You probably have already been thinking about one. What's a big pain point or a challenge or an opportunity? We're going to work you through some ideation and some narrowing and have you commit to a next step. Now, this is your space, your thinking. We want your brain to be working. And so it really is about your context. And I'm going to encourage you to go to this moonshot side of the continuum. Yes, there are some practical applications. And if that feels right for you, or we're not going to tell you don't do that. But let's really gather the energy of the time we spent together today and think big. What's that going to look like? We'll talk a little more about moonshots, design thinking. Coach Ivan's going to get us warmed up and get our brains going. We'll identify a problem, and then we'll go through some protocols for flair and focus and have you commit. So be ready. Coach Ivan, can you get us ready?
Everyone, you might be familiar with the data. It is a known thing that movement enhances creativity. That's right. If you haven't done it, I encourage you to go out for a walk without tech for 10 minutes if you're feeling stuck. It's a real mind boost, and we're going to do some calisthenics. Do we have some music available for us? Because what I'd like you to do is just stand up if you can. If you can't stand up, try to just free up your torso. We're going to do a couple of movements to get that brain going. All right, here we go. Arms up, and we're going to do some twists. Twist. There you go. Twist. Feel that movement. That's right. Doing some twists. Real simple. Okay. I feel that brain. Oh, that's feeling good. Okay, let's take a step back and let's do some squats. I call these the disappearing squats. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 1 more, 6. Okay, our last exercise before we dive in is going to be the windmill. This is where you really embarrass yourself if there's someone else around you. I want you to take your arms and do a big old windmill. You might want to throw a wave into the camera there as you're passing up. A little wave, a little wave, a little wave, a little wave. That's right, Corey. You got this, Corey. That's right. Okay, great. Remember, folks, if this feels a little uncomfortable or weird, that's exactly what we want, because we're challenging you today to get out of your rigid mindsets and your rivers of thinking. It's all about following a protocol today where you have blue sky, no one's going to stop you. Kill that inner editor that's always sitting on your shoulder, perched on your shoulder like a little demon. This activity is all about thinking about what is possible, right? And flaring and focusing according to our lead. So let's dive in.
All right. How should we be, Coach?
Yeah, so what we used to do at What If Innovation, Corey, is when we would come in with these like high-level corporate executives, they're stiff, they're wearing their suits, they want to get stuff done. We try to set every session up with 2 or 3 mindsets or vibes to help people think about how to show up and how to behave, because different sessions require different mindsets. So we always try to keep a few words prioritized. So if you have some stickies or pieces of paper, please write down these 3 words and post them up on your screen so that you're reminded to be disciplined. We're going to be moving quickly and we're going to give you specific directions. So please try to follow those protocols. More fun, we want you to be empowered. You are the builder and the decider during this hour, right? No one's going to tell you can't do it. So really, like I said, flick that little devil off your shoulder, that inner editor. And finally, we want you to be scrappy. Get your pen, your paper, your actual physical paper. You're still going to be using AI, okay, obviously, but try to write everything down by hand. It's really a different feel. It's very good for getting the brain going. Be scrappy, use different materials. You're going to do a little visual ideation as well. We're going to ask you to embrace your inner artist. So disciplined, empowered, and scrappy today, friends. So we know the topic is moonshots, right? We know we want you to think big. A moonshot, to be clear, is something that seems impossible, right? Obviously, when American astronauts landed on the moon in '69, that was thought of incredible, and that's one of the geneses of this phrase. It's a monumental effort. It's something that, at the very least, can be considered a lofty goal. My moonshot in education is to design real-world work simulations that are fueled by AI that help companies across sectors give design challenges to young people so that we can simulate the back and forth of doing real-world work as professionals do. Corey, what's your example of a moonshot?
Well, I want to remind us of the incredible moonshots that we just heard about from various leaders within the space. Students, leaders, educators, Aura's Dreams Hub, such an incredible idea. Pat's inspiring worldview that everyone in the world becomes a creator of impactful technologies. Mike's completely redesigned school system, Samvi's digital discourse, Dr. Phil's moonshot. They were just absolutely incredible. And I know you all just came from hearing those ideas. And if you missed them for any reason, we encourage you to check out those recordings after today's session. But in general, think big. What might seem impossible, but isn't, once you put some effort behind it and really think about what the future can look like for ourselves and for our students. All right.
So, moonshots. Let's dive into design thinking. So we're going to run through a real quick review in 5 minutes of the process. because even though we're focusing on ideation in this session, it's really important to understand where that phase fits into the broader process of design thinking. So first of all, design thinking is an open-ended problem-solving process. That means it's not the same as architecture. It's not the same as engineering, where there's usually one or two best answers and there's very specific sort of math and science required to get to that point. Design thinking is for open-ended problem solving when there could be dozens of correct answers and a lot of variables in between. So we all know ideation is about coming up with ideas and brainstorming and all of that stuff. What we want you to see here is that that is part of a larger iterative and recursive process, right? That actually starts with empathy. It actually starts with understanding the stakeholders who are facing the problem that you want to solve. And you see empathy on the left. And you see how you go through defining the problem to then arriving at an idea, building the idea, prototyping it, testing it, and probably failing, probably not getting it quite right, and then going back through the process again. So that's the idea behind the figure 8. But as we'll see on the next slide, there are many different ways of thinking about and visualizing design thinking. This is known as the double diamond: discover, define, develop, and deliver. Wow, 4 Ds. Love the alliteration. As a former comparative literature major, really appreciate that. You see 2 diamonds here that are met in the middle where you have your design brief or you define your problem, right? So this double diamond is the same thing as what we saw in the last slide. It's the same essential idea. Some people take 4 phases for design thinking, some people take 8, but you're basically going through the same essential process. And we think that's really important for you to understand because we don't want you to get pegged to one particular way of thinking about it. Design thinking at the end of the day is about really getting to understand the problem that you are trying to solve, the people feeling the pain of that problem, and then understanding when you're being expansive and flaring out and when you're being reductive and really focusing and making choices. So as we'll see on the next slide, the flare and focus comes throughout this iterative process. You'll see that from the empathize to the define phase, right? When you're empathizing, you're learning about all the people. It's a wide open world. You have a ton of stuff to learn. But then when you're defining and making choices and making connections and synthesizing information, that is a reductive moment, right? That's a reductive process. So really design thinking is all about convergence and divergence, right? These 2 different kinds of thinking that we really need to succeed and to solve problems, but we need to use each of them at the right time. So that's it, folks. Flare and focus. We're going to be doing a little bit of each. We're flaring out, we're focusing in. We're flaring out, we're focusing in. That's the idea, and we'll tell you when to do what. So let's dive in.
Thanks, Coach. All right. We're going to get our brains working with problem identification. If you haven't already, sip of water, stay hydrated.
Yeah, this is where we get using the brain juice here.
So cheers, Coach. All right, get your tools ready. Make sure you have something to write with and your Post-it notes and a place to capture your thinking. Let's get started. Okay, where we're going to start you off today with your own big idea is figuring out your stakeholder audience. So you are for sure already thinking about a challenge, an opportunity, a pain point. And the first thing that we want you to do, and this is partially in the define portion of the design thinking, is to figure out who might you want to solve for. Who are they? What are the pain points, the problems, the needs? So we have an example here to help you get specific, but please don't let it constrain your thinking in any way, shape, or form. But here's one. High school algebra students that are struggling to engage in course material, which is causing significant gaps in mastery. So take a beat. Think about your stakeholders, who is feeling pain that you might want to tackle in this process. Write it down on your Post-it note, your
And in our,
whiteboard.
Corey, that in our world of education-focused stuff, there are tons of stakeholders in getting things done. We know that's part of the complexity here, right? There are students, there are different kinds of students. So try to be specific about which student you're talking about if you are solving for students. And ditto for admin, right? Are we talking about division heads, heads of school, district leaders? They all have different responsibilities. We know they don't always necessarily play nicely in the sandbox together. So let's be really clear about which stakeholders. Are you dealing with ed tech vendors? Are you dealing with other salespeople? Are you dealing with community members, community-based organizations, CBOs that you're trying to reach for whatever reason? So just try to be as specific as you can, but also expansive in the stakeholder map of all the different people your product or service or idea will touch.
Love it. And in that expansive map, you want to think about who are the primary stakeholders and who is within that stakeholder ecosystem as secondary stakeholders. Our brains will take us somewhere different if we're thinking about we're designing to solve for students versus we're designing to solve for teachers. But of course, when we're thinking about solutions for the way a math classroom or math education happens, both students and teachers are stakeholders within that ecosystem, as well as others, like Coach mentioned.
And yes, you're allowed to have two primary stakeholders if you want to cheat. That's okay. We've seen that before, but really try to think about the priorities. Who is your ally in this idea? Who are the blockers in your idea?
All right. So in our example here, we have a quick list of stakeholders that we're already thinking about: the teachers, the students, the online learning provider that they may be using. And we want to think about both their pain and their needs. So as we're sharing this example with you, jot down what's coming to mind for your stakeholders as we go. We will pause for a couple of minutes in a moment so you can get all your ideas down. But we want to show you this example. Coach, can you tell us a little bit about the relationship between the pain and the needs we have here in the example? And this isn't like pain from working out, just to be clear.
That's right. It's even worse. It's mental and psychological pain, or pain in the workplace, right? Even the worst kind of pain. So yeah, the pain people are feeling, for example, math teachers might recognize that they want to personalize learning for everyone in the room, all of their students, but it takes too long. They physically don't have the time to individualize education. So therefore their need is to save time, teaching somehow to carve out more time. So it's a very simple yin and yang relationship between the pain and the needs. One is a function of the other, right? If 10th grade students don't enjoy math, I'm very much channeling myself here, so I know many people do enjoy math, then the need is to make algebra more interesting or fun, right? So those two should be directly related. And don't worry about getting too specific with the need, because that'll come later when you're ideating your solution. You just need a general high-level need. So don't think about the granular specific answer, just what is the broad need?
Yep. So we're thinking about our stakeholders. We have primary, we have secondary, thinking about our pains and needs. And where this is going to lead you, we want you to take some of those notes that you've been writing to defining a problem. Get a crisp problem statement down if you can. So here's the example. User X needs to blank, but blank. High school algebra students need to master foundational concepts, but they struggle to engage with the course material in our example. So we're going to have you put a very specific problem statement down based on who you've identified so far, what their pain is, what their needs might be. We have another example for you while you're thinking about that. And Coach, will you tell us about that example?
Sure. And if you're just doing your thing, feel free to mute me for 1 minute, no problem, and no offense taken. So the problem I'm facing at Portal Learning is that we believe students need access to real world learning and professionals, like human professionals, in order to improve career prospects. But, however, professionals, as we've discovered in our attempts to reach them and bring them into the classroom, have very little time to engage students sustainably and in real time. So that's the essential challenge we're facing here. Now, there's another way of framing this, which is important to realize. All of you have a problem you're looking at, but framing it in slightly different ways can often unlock some insights. There is often one best way to think of a problem or to describe it. So another way of thinking of my problem is that industry needs more access to education curricula because young hires coming into the workforce do not have the adequate durable skills or real-world project experience to thrive in the workplace. We're seeing a lot of churn in the workplace. But these industry professionals don't know how to access schools, and schools don't know how to access industry experts by and large. There are silos between the education and professional spaces. So I've just described the same essential problem in two very different ways. So we encourage you to also explore if there's a different angle.
All right. Thanks, Coach, for that example. We're going to give you about 5 minutes now to go ahead and do some of this thinking for yourself. Problem statement, stakeholders, pains and needs. I believe we will have the problem statement frame in the chat, and we'll give you a few minutes with some brain music.
Ooh, what music is Corey going to go for?
Energetic, upbeat, lo-fi. And go ahead, use those materials you have and get thinking. How you feeling, Coach?
I'm so ready to go. I can feel the energy through the computer of people just their brains crunching, thinking about the different problem statements. And I just wish we could call on folks from around the world right now to share them out. I don't think we have time for that, Corey.
Unfortunately not, because we'd love to have all these voices, but they can share them in the chat. We will try not to get too distracted by them, but you all should definitely give one another some love, give one another some feedback, and yeah, like show what's resonating with you with the reactions. And let's move into some ideation. Our brains are sweating. Make sure you keep sipping that water and let's keep them working.
Oh yeah, I'm starting to sweat myself. That's good. That's when I know I'm working hard. All right, so folks, we're going to dive into some blue sky thinking. You might have heard this term. The idea is very simple. It's that we have no constraints in certain moments to imagine what is possible. And the thing about ideation is that on the one hand, it's the most intuitive phase of design thinking because, of course, you're ideating, you're brainstorming, you're being creative. It seems obvious. And something we want you to walk away with today, if you don't know it already, is that there are actually very specific protocols and mindsets that help you optimize for ideation. It's not just a random thing, and it's not just, Jimmy is more creative than me. We believe everyone can be equally creative with practice. So embrace your blue sky thinking and let's dive in. So what we'd like you to do is take your Post-its or index cards or pieces of paper and go into an ideation sprint for a few minutes, okay? There are a couple of things we want you to keep in mind as you come up with as many ideas as possible. We want you to go for quantity. It's really important to not worry about ideas that suck, okay? As adults and even earlier in high school, we are unfortunately conditioned to embrace this inner editor. We're conditioned to be afraid to come up with and speak of ideas that might be incorrect. This is completely wrong. We should be embracing the other approach, which is to be brave, come up with a bunch of ideas and recognize that most of them won't see the light of day. But that's okay. That's how we generate the jewels. All right? So as you're writing them down, don't go into detail. Details will come later. We say headline your idea. So when you're writing on a sticky note, a headline should be something that you can read at a glance and it easily fits on the Post-it. Okay? Your bad ideas are good ideas. Kill that inner editor. Go for quality and do it for 5 minutes. As many possible ideas as you can. Ready? Go.
Hey, Coach, quick question. Do you have any tips for if I get stuck?
These are the moments, Corey, where you just have to push through and come up with and embrace those bad ideas.
Okay.
There's no other way except to shift the frame, like we described before. So if you can't come up with more than 3 responses, look at your responses and copy off of those. Take derivative responses from the 3 ideas you've already been able to come up with. And we want you to push through and embrace those crappy ideas in the back of your mind that you're scared to share with people. Don't worry, let them out. This is a catharsis.
I'm going to think, what are some of my best ideas and what are some of my worst ideas? And I'm going to write them all down.
Write them all down. There's
All
no
right.
bad ideas.
Couple minutes. Oops.
These are like reps at the gym. Just keep going. Get through the rep. Use derivative ideas if you need to. Use different shades of gray, as you might say. All right, last couple of ideas. Wrap it up. If you're feeling exhausted, that's good. That's what we want. All right, how did that feel? We get some emojis. What is the emoji for exhausted? We're hoping that you're feeling a little bit challenged, right? To dig and scrape some of those last ideas off the ground. That backspace in your brain that maybe you don't get to too regularly. All right, we're going to jump into a focus moment. So to what we were saying before, we've been in expansive mode, right? Blue sky, anything's possible. Now what we'd like you to do is go over all your ideas, take these great notes you have and these great headlines. And we're going to ask you to get reductive and choose 5 radically different solutions to dive into in detail. And we want you to draw them visually. If you don't consider yourself an artist, again, flick the inner editor off your shoulder. It's not about drawing quality. It's about just interpreting visually what is happening in this product, service, idea that you're coming up with. So take a few minutes to come up with 5 different, not come up with, but select 5 different ideas that you think have the most potential, that you think are intriguing. That can be included in a couple of ideas that you're not really sure will work, but are intriguing and interesting. We're going for variety in these 5 ideas. Okay? Don't forget to use AI to help you with describing what these things could be. So take a minute or two to feed in the basic headline and say, I'm trying to come up with this for this problem with this stakeholder, right? You have everything in front of you. So just feed that information into your favorite AI, GPT type thing and see if it helps. And then finally, with a couple of these ideas, you might want to shift the stakeholders or the personas that you've come up with to get better stimulus, to get better response. Okay? So use a combination of all of these options, 5 ideas, go deep. We're giving you a full 8 minutes. So what we expect, and by the way, what I very rarely see in this activity is that people get to actually all 5. This is actually harder than it seems. So try to give yourself about 2 minutes for each. Ready? Go. If you have not switched to another idea, please do so. If you have a really great idea you love, leave it be. It's not going anywhere. Go for volume right now. Try to really get to 4 or 5 in this limited time. You can always further develop the idea. Remember, keep moving to your ideas. Only a couple of minutes left. Try to get to that idea 4 and 5. Be visual.
All right, Coach.
Woo!
We are working out those brains. Maybe you might need a little shoulder roll, little neck roll. We got a little bit more towards the end of this workout, right, Coach?
Oh, yeah. We're almost there, folks. We're almost there, folks. Congratulations on going deep. Whenever we do this in person, I'm always seeing folks that are stuck on idea 2 or 3, and then those 4th or 5th boxes remain empty. So if that is you, don't worry. It is harder than it seems to come up with deep and thoughtful ideas and to get through them in just a few minutes. So don't worry. You always have time to go back to this, like we said. But this is building those brain muscles, right? It takes time to do this, but if you do it a bunch of times, you'll get better at the ideation phase. All right, so we're further focusing now. It's time for what we call democratic voting. The idea is to try to be fairly objective and unbiased in deciding which is your winning idea, okay? In the design world, we can have many great ideas, but we can only build out one at a time, generally speaking, on a small team. We build out the winning idea around the qualities and metrics that we think this project needs. So taking your top few ideas, put together a quick and simple table based on categories that you're judging the idea by. They tend to be things like which is the most practical, which is the most creative or unique or weird idea, which would be the cheapest to produce. Or my favorite for this Moonshot edition is the game changer, right? We encourage you to choose the idea that would really change the game, even if you think it's harder to do or more expensive or yada, yada, yada. But there's also the my boss will love this idea, right? We know that we live in the real world. That's a thing. Or my kids will love this, right? So the point is you can come up with the categories. Please list them quickly. Don't overthink it and rate each idea on a 1 to 3 scale, coming up with a simple total. Obviously, you're alone at the moment, most of you. So this is just your inputs, but democratic voting is a great way to come out with a consensus winner when you have a team.
All right, so we're going to have just a couple of minutes here for you to further focus. And the goal here is that we have one final idea remaining, right, Coach? Just to confirm.
That's right. There can be only one winner theoretically, because your small, scrappy team can only build one idea at a time. But the beauty of the design process is that you build something out, you try it, it doesn't quite work, you go back to your bank of other winning ideas, which is why we brought you from many Post-its to 5 winners. And now that you've built those out for a few minutes, you can see which is the one to start. In the design and product world, of course, it is often not the first idea that gets built out and released to market. It is often the 3rd or 5th or 20th idea that it turns out to be the right thing. So, as we like to say, strong ideas lightly held. If one idea wins by 1 or 2 points, but you actually want to build out the second idea, build that one out. No one cares. All right, we good? One more minute. If anyone wants to type in the chat some interesting categories they came up with, feel free. I've heard something like idea I'd most want to be working on a Sunday as a category. That is something that has stuck with me. I was like, ah, bro, you work too much.
We are all here on a Saturday, Coach.
You know,
with enthusiasm.
Excellence is not free.
All right. Let's bring it home. How's that sound, Coach?
Let's do it. We're almost there.
Right. I'm going to take us through our cool down. Like Coach just shared with us, you have a bunch of ideas. Hopefully you focused and thinking about those categories and voting got you to one idea that you're feeling particularly excited about. So what we want you to do is commit to an action. We know that these are big ideas, some moonshot ideas. So the action doesn't necessarily have to be go build, but we want you to cool down that brain by sending an email to yourself or maybe even a voice note to yourself, whatever your flavor is. Maybe write it on a Post-it note so you can stick it on your bathroom mirror about what you will do next. We have some ideas here about what you could do next. Get feedback from AI. Tell it to take on a different perspective. Share it with a colleague. Just get talking about those big ideas. Share it on LinkedIn and tag us, Corey and Ivan and AI for Education, and show us what your ideas were. If you're feeling really still energetic, build a prototype and actually test it out. Share your idea with the learning community. Other options. So go ahead, take a minute, email to yourself, post-it note, or a voice note. What are you going to do?
It always feels good to end with an action step like this. It's great to have that email or that voice message waiting for you to remind yourself and to hold yourself accountable to activate all the good thinking you've done during this last hour. So we thank you for grinding with us, for getting sweaty, for doing the reps. And we're really excited about what's next, whether you turn this into a business idea, whether you prototype it. As you see, there are lots of ways that you can go from good to great in a short amount of time with ideas.
And with that, we want to thank you. And before we fully close out, I want us all to also take a moment, because I know she's about to go on and thank a whole bunch of other people, to just show Amanda Bickerstaff, our fearless leader, the brilliant mind that comes up with all of these moonshot ideas and helps us all believe in things that we first thought were impossible. Amanda, thank you so much from all of us. You are incredible. You made this happen. And we love you. We love you so, so much. So
way to go, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everybody that's still here with us. Email us, follow us on LinkedIn, tag us in your ideas, and we'll see you in 30 seconds over.
Well, we will see you in 30 seconds, but can we like, first of all, who cares about me? Look at this guy and look at this woman who are here at the end of a super amazing day, or the beginning of your day if you just joined for this session. I want to say thank you so much to Ivan and to Corey. I cannot tell you how great it is to actually have this totally crazy idea where we end on you and not us. And so thank you so much. And thank you for everyone that stuck with us and is doing the big thinking. So what we're going to do is we're going to say our final goodbyes. I promise you'll be out before, like, we're not going to spend 30 minutes. It'll be 5 minutes, but come on over there with us and we'll see you right now.